Good evening and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. You know, how brands are dealing with COVID-19 and marketing today is clearly of an issue. And so I wanted to reach out to a company, I think it's a new company called 6 Degrees. And we've got two interesting people here to chat with us tonight. Adriana Gaffney Witherspoon, she's an award-winning strategist that focuses on the insights of consumer behavior. And then in addition, we've got Derek Keynes, and Derek is also with the same organization, and he's a former consumer packaged goods marketer for 12 different years in Canada and the United States. And he says he's taken what was 20% of his job that he enjoyed the most into 100% of his job now by doing agency side and getting multiple clients in numerous different categories. So Derek and Adrienne, thank you so much for joining me. Tell me, if you could, who is 6 Degrees?
Derek, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, sure. So 6 Degrees, we are conversion experts on the evolving path to shopping. So we've actually been around for 30 years, just over 30 years in Canada, helping companies, a lot of consumer packaged goods companies, but it spans the gamut, basically grow their brands, sell products, and be very profitable. So it's who we are, it's what we do. We're a full service marketing shop, focused on shopper marketing, but we also do a lot of experiential marketing, a lot of digital marketing and packaging work as well.
Now we should probably explain what those mean, because there's so many terms, right? Like, so shopper marketing is really kind of the part of sort of the journey, if I can explain it that way, where somebody is kind of already in a buying state of mind and we want to make sure that they buy one of our brands. So that's really what the world of shopper is about, is that we talk about, making sure that we're in the right place for when shoppers become buyers and making sure that they want to buy us. And then digital is really a channel through which we're increasingly using that, especially as, we talk about the impact of COVID-19 and shelter in place, and how digital marketing and being able to talk to people online and trying to get them to convert has become even more important to try to get them to buy. And then finally, experiential is that area where we actually get to create an experience around a brand that, that usually ends with somebody being given a sample of something, but they get that sort of deeper impression of what a brand is all about that really makes them excited about a brand. So those are the kinds of things we do.
How has what you're doing changed in the last couple of months because of COVID-19?
Derek?
The fundamentals are still the same. So if you've been in the business long enough, you do see a lot of challenges come up. And certainly this is a global challenge, but we do like to say that things tend to change slowly and then all at once. So already some of the trends we've seen, like the move to more e-commerce and buying patterns, it's been in the works now for well over a decade. But I think this has just accelerated that very, very quickly, because, for a while, you couldn't even go into certain stores or buy certain goods beyond the basics that you needed, like, food and personal goods and things like that. So it's taken some of these trends that were already underway and just, put them on a rocket, basically. So brands that were already in that space had a bit of a leg up and were doing well. But a lot of brands weren't, because before this all hit, e-commerce sales were maybe 1% to 3% of a lot of consumer packaged goods sales. So yeah, they knew it was coming, but still the big retailers, the Walmarts, Costco's, Shoppers Drug Mart, Loblaws, those were still the bulk of their sales. But all of a sudden, when 10, 20% of your sales are going through e-commerce, like, oh my goodness, you better pay attention. You better get up to speed really fast on how to make sure that you are available when someone is looking to purchase from that category.
Yeah, and to drive that point home, it's incredible. Like Walmart.ca, which many people will be familiar with, between February and April, saw a 210% increase to traffic on their website. And they were trying to fulfill tens of thousands of orders every day, which was a massive increase. And we saw We saw a lot more people trying click and collect for the first time. We saw a lot more people trying online grocery shopping generally for the first time. And those numbers, from what we understand and from what our research is telling us, those are things that are actually going to maintain. Those are things that people are going to continue to want to do, that a lot of people kind of crossed that chasm in some ways from not knowing how to do it into knowing how to do it, which we call friction. And now that friction is kind of behind them. They now know how to do it, and a lot of them are going to keep going.
You know, I was doing a bunch of home renovation and work, and started ordering stuff, Canadian Tire website. And you drive in and you call them up and they load it all in your car. It's like spectacular. And then even the LCBO will have all of my wine ready for me, packed up in a cardboard case, ready for me to pick up and go. And I've changed my whole shopping habits. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're chatting tonight with Derek Keynes and Adriana Gaffney-Witherspoon from 6 Degrees. They are consumer experts on customers, and we're going to take a break for messages and come right back in just a minute. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. Tonight we're chatting with Adriana Gaffney-Witherspoon and Derek Keynes. They come to me from an organization called 6 Degrees. They call themselves a conversion expert in the evolving world of shopping. I'm going to ask them a little bit more about what that is. But maybe I could start with you, Adrienne. You're an award-winning strategist. You focus on the insights that drive shopping behavior. What are the insights today that drive shopping behavior?
Wow. You know what? It is, I wish we had more time because there are so many. Academically, it's a really interesting time in shopper behavior because everything is changing, and it's changing very quickly. We do, one of the things that we do in order to actually, put together really robust plans for our clients is we do a lot of research, and we've actually been doing research with 500 shoppers on a regular basis across the country in order to start to understand what are their behaviors, how are things changing. And I would say that there's sort of 4 main things that are really kind of changing or drivers of change. The first thing is everyone's need for safety. I mean, this has been a really interesting time with respect to shelter in place, and a lot of people are looking for now safety, and safety can be defined as they're looking for financial safety, they're looking for sort of physical safety, but they're also looking for mental safety. They're looking for moments of joy, moments of normalcy. And sometimes, within shopping behavior, brands can really help with that. This second thing,
Sorry. How does a brand help with joy?
Oh, well, great. It's a great question. In a number of ways. One of the things that we saw where brands can help with joy is we saw a marked increase in people buying a lot of treats, a lot more sweet and salty foods, and a lot more treats that they were putting in their grocery basket, a significant increase there. And I think that, when everything else was sort of starting to spin out of control, especially in around March, April into May, we saw a lot of people starting to load up their carts with the things that were going to bring them a certain amount of joy from that perspective. But there are other ways that brands can bring joy. We have one client who has actually started a really exciting sort of corporate responsibility program that's called the Royale Home for Every Pet program. And it's a very hopeful, joyful program where they're giving donations to help more shelter pets find forever homes, and have launched all of these wonderful videos of pets online finding their homes, which, as we saw a spike in pets being adopted as well because people had more time to spend at home, this was a really wonderful program that again was able to bring people a few moments of joy in their day.
What's the difference between discovery shopping and mission shopping?
Oh, great question. So everybody, when they shop, they have different types of shops. We have those shops where they start with, I'm going to to go shopping, and they may not necessarily have anything in mind, or they may have sort of a loose idea of what it is that they're looking for, but they may not exactly know. Whereas a mission-based shop is one where you're going to go into the grocery store, or you're going to go into any store, and you know exactly what you want, and you just want to go in and you want to get it. And typically in any shopping experience, most people have a little bit of both. So a little bit of time on discovery, a little bit of time on mission. And in fact, what usually happens is you start with mission. If you figure out everything that you want and you've got it all, then you kind of spend a few moments looking around. And prior to COVID, and this is what's particularly interesting, is that 82% of Canadians would usually spend some proportion of their time in a typical grocery store shop on discovering. Now it's down to 21%. People are looking more than ever. And it's like your story from before from Canadian Tire, right? They want to get in, they want to get what they want, and they want to get out again.
Okay, so what's the solution for the retailer? They've got to, put it all right by the cash register so you can't not see it, or make it enticing to come to the back area with the patio stuff?
That's part of it, but part of it is also helping people plan their shop better, and actually moving that discovery shop into before they even get in the store, helping them with list making, helping them by, we're seeing a huge uptick in email open rates. So people are paying a lot more attention these days to the emails that they're receiving from brands. So being able to kind of get on the list so that people can simply execute once they get in store is a big part of it. But the other thing is that more than anything else right now, people are looking for value. So what is a retailer to do? A retailer is to really look at what it is that people need. And if they're looking to stretch their wallets, which is a lot of what we're seeing right now, a lot of, deal hunting, a lot of buying family packs, larger packs, which does two things. It helps people buy less frequently if they can buy something larger, but it also helps in their minds kind of save $1 or $2, which is really important. So people are really open to those sorts of things, looking at displays that are very evident, to your point, that is a special offer, a special deal, a bigger size. And we're actually seeing an uptick now. It'll be interesting to see what happens next in people being interested in contests and those sorts of things again, because depending on what the prize is, it's a chance to have that moment of joy, and it might be a chance to stretch your dollar.
My daughter used to go to Queen West or to a mall. I think it was 100% discovery. It was just, shopping was an entertainment opportunity. With COVID-19, a lot of that's gone away. Are people getting away from shopping as entertainment and it's only mission?
Right now, yes. Right now, when we're talking about an in-store experience, yes. However, what we are seeing is some of that joy has moved online. Some of that joy has moved to a huge uptick in people wanting to shop Amazon, people wanting to shop other places where they can do some of that discovery shop. It's just moved online. It has declined somewhat, but we saw a really big uptick in really interesting areas that could be considered entertainment. We saw an uptick in people buying classic books. We saw an uptick in people buying puzzles, people buying board games. So there has been a real return to some of those kinds of things that just, again, they make people happy, and it is that little bit of discovery that they can get, but they can get it online.
Your resume said that you worked at the first online launch of Indigo. I love these recommendations that you get, like, the last 5 people that bought this book bought, these other books. Does that actually work?
Surprisingly, it absolutely does. Yeah. It has to do with, it's a cognitive process that we call anchoring. And it just sort of is that idea that kind of says to you, oh, okay, people like me enjoy this. And yeah, we do see actually a huge uptick when people are recommended things. It does tend to work. And the nice thing too is these things are only as good as the algorithm that's driving them, right? In the sense that if you don't feel like that algorithm understands you at all, you're going to have less trust in the algorithm. It's not going to work. But sites like Amazon really have figured that out, and they're doing an excellent job. I think Indigo is doing an excellent job of that sort of thing. And so you tend to trust those recommendations that happen over time.
Derek, your outline said that you worked in the car business, and I'm in the market for a car. I went out shopping this weekend, and the guys were the salespeople were there with masks, and they were wiping down the handles and all this kind of stuff. It felt very uncomfortable. And yet, online on TV, I see these companies that will actually bring the car to my house on a tractor on a trailer, and if I don't like it, they'll take it away. Are people actually going to buy cars online?
They have been, and I know that industry certainly suffered in the beginning. I know with a lot of the 2021 models coming out right now, it's actually hard to get your hands on some of the 2020s. So production, I believe, was down a little bit, but that industry certainly suffered, but has come back quite strongly and pivoted. And again, it all depends on your amount of need. If your car is at the end of its life and you really need a new one, then there's no alternative. You have to go shopping for it. Maybe initially people, delayed some of those large purchases, especially with the uncertainty of the economy. And there are, a lot of people still out of work. They may delay some of those big purchases, but as things start to come back to life and things are opened up, industries like that, which are traditionally more longer sell periods like cars, and you're doing a lot of research, not in a dealership, it's pretty easy still to make a purchase. That's a lot of people do all their research online, and by the time you get to the dealership, the make, the model, the color, the options, everything you want, and it's almost just down to negotiating price. So in a sense, you've already been buying online. You've been taking, I'd say, the first 13 steps online anyway. It's just that final step may look a little bit different than it did previously.
In China, when it reopened, the statistic is supposedly that the car buyership is up dramatically, something like 80%, as people are scared to use transit and are going back to cars. We haven't really opened up downtown Toronto, at least yet, as far as I know. People are still working from home. What do you think is going to happen here?
I've heard, the housing market as well has changed or will change. I've heard a little bit with more people, willing to move to the suburbs or other cities, and some offices aren't going back to work at all. So there could be counterbalancing factors where you may get less people buying downtown or midtown properties where they could use transit. But if you've moved to, say, a bedroom community or something like that, but you still need to commute to your office a couple of days a week, then you are going to need a car. So, exactly what's going to happen, I'm not sure, but you can see all these counterbalancing factors that still need to weigh out. The other thing is how long COVID goes on for. I think when it first started back, first really hit back in March, we were all assuming, summertime maybe at the longest, but now we're looking into 2021. So some of these trends that were just a little blip are really taking hold.
So, 6 Degrees you described as expert in understanding consumer behavior, customers, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
How do you do that when we're in the middle of a pandemic and you just don't know how long the pandemic is going to last? You don't know exactly what's going to happen. You don't know about stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. How are you doing that? Are you doing like tons more research than you would have done previously? What is it that you're doing?
100%. That's exactly what we're doing. And we start most of our meetings these days with, we don't have a crystal ball, because we don't, but there are a number of things that we can research. It's not so reliable. For example, we run into some trouble if we were to ask people in July, how do you think you're going to be spending your holiday season? That's problematic, right? Like there are just some things where we have to rely on our experience and make some educated guesses. But we rely very heavily on looking at consumer behavior here in Canada. But we also look a lot at consumer behavior internationally in order to understand and start to triangulate what we think could happen here. Like, for example, people can't tell you where they're going to be shopping 6 months from now. But what I can tell you is that throughout COVID so far, that over a third of people, nearly 40% of people actually have changed even where they're doing their household shop as part of COVID. So you can sort of take that and understand, all right, this is going to create a little bit of a different swing. And what is it that people are looking for? So you can research that. And in this case, you know, we know that of that nearly 40% of people, that almost 100% of them are planning to continue to go to, as far as they know, continue to go to that store that they're currently shopping at. And they're doing it because that's a location that's closer to home, because they can get the stock and the brands that they're looking for, because they feel safer, and importantly, because it's a one-stop shop. So you're like, okay, one-stop shops are going to continue to be important. How do we then direct our clients to help them with retailer strategies that are going to edge them in that direction? So as I said, you know, we don't have a crystal ball, but we sure do keep our finger on the pulse of all research, and as well as doing a lot of our own research in order to make some pretty educated guesses about what's next.
And how do you track that?
Well, right now we're talking to, as I mentioned, we're talking to 500 shoppers with a regular cadence, and we're looking at what the patterns are over time.
So you take this sample and you follow these people over time.
We're actually looking at a different 500 people every time. It's a pretty standard number that is actually going to get us some good consistency for looking at national trends. And that way we can, you know, make sure that if there are any sort of, you know, if there's any weirdness in the data, it'll kind of normalize over time. But yeah, we are definitely doing that because we have to, because otherwise we'll have absolutely no roadmap.
We're chatting tonight with Adriana Gaffney Witherspoon and Derek Keynes from 6 Degrees, a marketing consumer research company. We're going to take a break for some messages and come right back in just a second. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. We're talking consumers, customers, research, marketing, etc., with two individuals from a company by the name of 6 Degrees that specializes in understanding customers and customer behavior real well. Derek, you made an interesting comment that I wanted to ask you about that may be a little off topic because it may be just of interest for any of our listeners that are interested in careers in marketing. But you said that you used to be on the packaged goods sides, consumer packaged goods sides, and then you changed to the agency. And you took what was 20% of your job that you enjoyed the most and made it 100% of your job. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so certainly I was 12 years in consumer packaged goods marketing, a bunch of years at Cadbury Adams, and then most of that time at Colgate. Fantastic companies. So the job of a marketer now, more than in the past 10, 20, 30 years ago, is you're a little bit of a small general manager managing the brand, but you're very much involved in supply chain, in the finance side of it, and the sales side of it, as well as doing the marketing, you know, figuring out the strategies and the tactics to target consumers and grow your brand and sell products. So that was the favorite part for me of the job. But on the agency side, I get the chance to do that all day, every day. But instead of working with just one company that I was working at, I get to do that across, you know, many of our clients in many different categories. And that's what really excited me and why I switched over. So I really like the fact I had that grounding, that basis in consumer packaged goods marketing, and what that has allowed me to do, and our agency actually, as a whole, we have several people who have my experience at our agency, is really think like the client. So it's not just providing the strategies, but understanding everything else that brand team is going through, what the sales team is likely going to say about it, what their customers are likely to say about it, how supply chain and finance thinks about it. So it enables us to think more like the client and less like just a traditional agency.
So if people are just starting out in marketing, graduating from business schools or whatever they are, what's your recommendation? Join a consumer packaged good company, or get into the agency right away, or get consumer packaged first and then wait 10 years and then go into the agency business?
Yeah, you know, I don't think there's one before the other is the best idea, but what I would encourage people to do is to try multiples. I've seen the you know, not everybody, but some of the best people I've met maybe didn't take a traditional path. You know, maybe they went into a sales role first, and then they went over into marketing, then they went over to agency, and maybe they tried high tech or finance, and then they went into selling household goods. So just the breadth and depth of experience I've found has been very valuable. And not everybody, there's some great people who have spent their entire careers on an agency side or in the marketing side, But I've just found that the cross experience really provides a well-roundedness that has served me well anyway.
You call yourself a chief client officer and Adriana a chief strategy officer. Can you explain those two titles and what the job differences are?
Yeah, so my position overall is more on the client service side. So my job is to make sure that we're servicing the clients well, really understand their business very deeply, build the relationships not only with the marketing teams we work with, but also their other internal teams, their sales team, their finance team, and also understand the customers really well. So it's everything more external on how our business, our agency business, manages clients and makes sure we're meeting their expectations.
Whereas my role is a little bit different in that I really represent in all of our dealings. I represent the consumer at the table. I'm the one who is responsible for really thinking about what is their journey, what do they need, what do they want, and so when Derek and I get to work together, it just means that he's got sort of the interests of the client very much in mind. I'm very much aware of that, and then together we're able to bring together all of our insights and all of our knowledge in order to create programs that are going to be a win for the client as well as a win for the consumer. And what we also within our realm is, and sort of where Derek and I share joint responsibility, is also making sure that it's a win for the retailer too, because a lot of the time we're working with brands that want to be able to be successful in a promotion or a program that they're going to run with a particular retailer. So it's incumbent on both of us to be aware of, what does the retail landscape look like? To your point, how are people shopping and where are they shopping? And if we think about those retailers, what are their problems? What are they looking to solve? Who are their targets? And so that we can create what we call the triple win of a win for the consumer, a win for the brand, and a win for the retailer. Does
your agency also have a chief creative officer?
We have an executive creative director. Yeah, we do. Same thing.
Okay. So, you talked about win for the retailer. I have been shocked at how many stores are gone bankrupt and closing down. And it appeared to be a lot of them in the fashion business. What's happening there? What are the solutions?
Solutions are, it's a really good question about solutions because it's tough, right? If you think about it, on a broader level, right now, about 73% of Canadian businesses have said that they have had some sort of changes to their employment or their compensation. So that's just putting less money into kitty, sort of generally speaking, of dollars available for spend. When you look at fashion underwent a major shift because all of a sudden we weren't wearing the same clothes that we were before. We were wearing a lot more leisure, a lot more PJs. So those sorts of things did really, really well. Whereas other things didn't. We're seeing a massive uptick in the cosmetics industry right now with respect to eye makeup. We're seeing a huge downturn with respect to lipstick because of mask wearing. It's just not as important. But the challenge for a lot of independent fashion businesses is unless they had their e-commerce strategy already figured out, it was really, really tough for them to be able to bounce back, get the eyeballs that were required and get that shopping, because a lot of the time, as we were talking about before, a lot of the time shopping for fashion is that discovery shop.
So you said that something like 40% of the people had changed where they were shopping. And my own personal situation, I used to shop for groceries just based on convenience. And when I was eating at home, it wasn't as big a deal. When I wanted a nice meal, I went into a restaurant. But during COVID-19, I wasn't going out to restaurants, so the nice meals were at home. And so I changed where I was shopping and went to a small butcher that had really good quality meat. And frankly, there were never more than 2 or 3 people in the shop, and so I felt very safe. Is that a trend that's happening, or you said people go where it's an all you can get everything in one shop, and that would suggest like the big grocery stores? Every time I go to a big grocery store, frankly, I feel like putting 3 masks on. I'm just really worried about all the different people there, and I get in trouble when I go down an aisle the wrong way and not follow the directions and stuff like that. So tell me what's happening with loyalty, with loyalty to different retailers right now or brands.
Yeah. It's a great question. So as I mentioned before, nearly 40% changed where they shop. And to your point, like one of the reasons is closer to home. So some of those local butcher shops as well were really great. I know that in my neighborhood, there were 2 of them that got online very, very quickly and started doing home delivery within a very small catchment area. But what's really interesting is, you know, as shoppers, as people, we kind of like to think of ourselves as being a little bit unpredictable, a little bit spontaneous when it comes to the things we choose. And the truth of the matter is, we're really creatures of habit. And to your point about recommendations, you know, that actually underlines that fact about the degree to which we are creatures of habit. But when COVID hit, a lot of us couldn't find those brands or those products that we really enjoy. So, for example, at its peak in April, 64% of Canadians said that they had to make some sort of substitution to a brand that they normally buy, and that 2/3 of people didn't care so much about the brand they were getting as long as they just got the product. And so what that meant was that all of a sudden, all of these people were trying new products, and trying new brands. And then what has the longer term impact of that been? Well, a lot of them, 82% of people that we've surveyed said that they plan to keep those new brands in their rotation, because what actually happens is that we have a brand we might prefer, and then we have other brands in our rotation that we would consider to be acceptable. And it's called polygamous loyalty, right? We feel loyal.
It's called what?
I know, right? It's a good one. It's called polygamous loyalty. It just means that we're loyal to a whole lot of different brands. But there's a number, right? They might be 3 brands, might be 4 brands. So yeah, so 82% of people said, you know what? I kind of like this brand that I'm trying. And so, 22% of those people said, you know what, I'm kicking out the old brand and I'm bringing in the newer model. And 60% of people said, you know what, I still like the other one, but this one is definitely going on the consideration list. So all of a sudden, we experienced a lot of consumers kind of being up for grabs in terms of loyalty. And you know what the defining factor was a lot of the time? Was whether or not there was that product on shelf. So distribution was exceptionally important.
I tell you, I go into so many shops these days, and there's whole aisles that are empty, and
That's right.
getting resupply is a big issue. Adriana, you call yourself a conversion expert, and you turn shoppers into buyers. And what you say is that you do everything from signs in a store to catch a shopper's eye and draw them to our brands, to contests, e-commerce, optimization, package design, social media, and more. So you're trying to turn people that are there shopping into a buyer. I always thought that was just price. Actually, I always thought it was price and or getting the end cap. So what is it that you're doing in that regard?
Well, there are a number of things that we do. We have a lot of sort of, tricks in our tickle trunk to kind of put it another way. But to your point, a lot of it is just about getting people to notice us. And sometimes that's with price for sure. But a lot of the time that can be with a new product. That can be with signage that we're able to put into a store. And a lot of the time it's in creating programs that are really insight-based, that are based in research that we've done that says, you know what, I have a feeling that these people are really going to enjoy this particular program or this particular contest in order to bring attention to our brands. So an example of that is one of our clients is Tim Hortons. And we did a really great program a couple of years ago with them where it was called Share a Cup of Tim's. And we realized that during the holiday season, people tend to stock up on coffee. And we wanted to make sure they stocked up on Tim Hortons coffee in the grocery store. So we also knew that during the holidays, there are so many people that you want to be able to reach out to that you don't always have time to connect with, because it's actually a pretty short time span during the holiday season. So we created a program where if you bought a certain amount of Tim Hortons coffee, you were able to get a gift card that you got online. and then you could share a cup of Tim Hortons coffee. You could send that gift card to anybody, and you could virtually share a cup of Tim's with that person over the holiday season. Or you could just send it to them to tell them that you were thinking of them. That sort of insight-based program actually helped propel Tim's and keep them at the #1 spot during the holiday season. So that's the kind of thing we do.
You say you're launching a website with a bunch of case studies. What are some of the other case studies you're going to be talking about?
Yeah. Derek, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so one, and it sounds really simple. It's simple to understand and get. So there's a brand called Renews It, which is an air freshener cone, and people oftentimes use these in their homes in multiple different rooms. On average, we found out that consumers buy 2.4 of those at a time on a shopping trip. So obviously, people are buying 2 or 3 of them at a time. So we wanted people to buy more than that. They're pretty pretty economical. They're just over $1. So what we devised was just something so simple. This little 4-pack carrier that we attached to the displays, and the ad campaign that was running at the time was called Choose Them All, and it was actually each different scent had a different scent gent to it, like Liam Lavender, and there were these it was a tongue-in-cheek ad campaign, but this fits so well with it. So just by giving these consumers a 4-pack carrier, they would fill it with 4. They wouldn't just fill it with 2. Normally they just take 2 cones off of a display, put it in their cart, and away they go. But if you have a 4-pack carrier, you're going to fill it with 4, especially when something's a bit of an impulse item and only, just over $1. So such a simple concept, but just understanding that insight. We did some research to find out how many consumers bought. It increased the sales of Renews It, where these 4-pack carriers were, by 91%. And that's with, same amount of advertising, same amount of secondary display. The return was fantastic. So just such a simple program, but it worked.
Were they pre-packaged in the 4-pack, or you got to choose what you wanted to put in?
You got to choose your own. So if there was a pallet or a display on the floor, we had a little holder that had a bunch of these in it. So just like if you're at a Loblaws or at another grocery store that's now selling beer, that you grab one of these little 4-packs and you can fill it with whatever scents you want to fill it with. So simple, but sometimes the simplest programs are the most effective.
Yeah, it was just that little nudge that helped people buy that little bit more, which made a massive difference to their business.
What a brilliant idea. I have a lot of dinner parties, and I always buy dips. You should have 4-packs for the different dips, so I can buy a couple of dips so people can choose which dip they want to dip into.
We always find, there's a big difference between consumer insights, which are maybe used to develop TV ad campaigns or online campaigns, and a shopper insight. They're very specific, and to really drive conversion, you have to understand the shopper insight. And we see an insight as there's 2 parts to that. There's the in, which is what is in their heads. What are shoppers thinking? And then the sight part of it is, what are they doing because of what they're thinking? If you know what's in their heads, but you're not sure how they're acting on it, you don't have an insight. Or if you see them doing something, but you don't know why they're doing it, you don't know what they're thinking, you don't have an insight. But when you combine those 2 things, that's when you have a real powerhouse of an insight. And there are specific shopper insights, and we don't just take, and great companies that are great at shopper marketing don't just take their out-of-home advertising and splash it on in store, because that's not why people are there. Like Adrian spoke to earlier, we get to understand, are you there on a mission, to stock up, or are you there because, hey, it's the Super Bowl's coming and I need certain products for the Super Bowl? Well, good clients with good shopper marketing know that, and they know the right message that says, hey, stock up for the big game, and you're going to need these 3 or 4 products, and we're going to make it easy for you to shop it. The whole key to growing a brand is making it easier for more people to buy in more buying situations.
Okay, so we got back to school this week. What's different about back to school shopping this time?
I'll pass it over to Adrian. The safety is, I'd say, as a parent of young kids, safety is certainly one of the top on the list.
Yeah, we definitely did see a decline in the amount of people and the dollars that people are spending with back to school. Again, I don't have a crystal ball, but I'm with Derek. I mean, it's one of those things where I think safety is going to continue to prevail. And I think that some of the behaviors that we're starting to instill in our children as they move back to either e-learning or the classroom is also going to have an impact on people's buying behaviors as well. And I think it's going to retrench that desire that they have for safety.
We're chatting tonight with two experts in customer conversion, taking customers that are in the store or thinking about buying and turning them from customers into buyers. Fascinating conversation. We're going to take one last break and come back with some concluding comments in just a minute. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. Fascinating conversation with Adrienne and Derek tonight about consumer behavior and shopping and turning shoppers into buyers with an organization called 6 Degrees. 6 Degrees what? 6 Degrees?
6 Degrees Integrated Communications.
6 Degrees Integrated Communications. Thank you. And I presume you have a website that people can go to check you out?
We do. It's just 6, the number 6, DEG, 6deg.ca.
Awesome. Derek, let me ask you a question. I'm firmly of the belief, and it's been studied, in finance and in acquisitions quite a lot, that companies during a tough economic time or a time like our pandemic that just hunker down and don't do much actually don't do well. And some of the biggest wealth that's ever been created were people that expanded during tough times. What about marketers? Should marketers be hunkering down or should they be spending during COVID-19 pandemic time?
Yeah, what we initially saw, and when first when COVID really started to take hold and change things, March, April timing, a lot of companies did pull back their advertising for a couple of reasons. First off, they didn't know what the future held, and there was a lot of uncertainty, even more than there is today. The second thing is we did hear from consumers that they weren't as interested in just brand sell communications back during the early periods. They wanted to, first off, help first responders and have a bit more of a corporate social responsibility message out there, which was very appropriate. The second thing is consumers wanted to know kind of what's in it for me. So a lot of consumers were very open to price promotions. But now as things have continued to move on, life is still not back to normal, but we're getting more back to normal than it was back in April. We found that companies that are continuing to invest in the right programs, pivoting fast, whether it's moving more to e-commerce or having the right insights, knowing that when consumers are in store, they may be going more on a mission trip to find exactly what they want. But those companies that have continued to invest are going to come out of this stronger. And there are companies that haven't pivoted fast and haven't invested. And quite frankly, they may not be here come the new year. We've already seen, some significant bankruptcies or retrenchment of
sure
companies.
have. It's been scary.
Yep.
Adriana, can you summarize what some of the big consumer trends are that you're seeing right now?
For sure. I think, as I mentioned at the outset, I think that there are 4 big ones, and there are 4 things that we all need to learn from, because, we do have to remember, as Derek, I think, put it really well, that, and we'll say it again, these are unprecedented times. And this is a situation unlike any other. I know that there's a desire to kind of compare it to other things, but we've got a humanitarian crisis with an economic, social, and political crisis that's all kind of wrapped in, if I look at it from a North American perspective. So if I look at sort of what are the 4 big things, we have to remember that, this idea that people have for safety, having that sense of physical safety, financial safety, and mental safety, and that we need to do everything that we can in order to kind of understand that that's their mindset as they go into a buying situation. The second thing is the notion of digital transformation, of the number of people who have now crossed that chasm into more online shopping behaviors, and making sure that, for our clients, that they are ready to service them in, when they are ready to become buyers, and making sure that they have presence, and good presence, on all of the shelves, whether or not we're not only talking about bricks and mortar or a physical store, but also an online presence as well. We have to remember how important distribution is, because people are switching up their loyalty. And then finally, as you talked about before, this notion of a discovery shop versus a mission shop, helping people make those more planful shops as they've reduced their big shopping trip that they would typically do. Usually people would shop about 3 times a week. Now they're going once a week. So they're taking on new plans and new behaviors. So those are then taking on new meanings for brands.
Adriana Gaffney Witherspoon and Derek Haynes of 6 Degrees, and that is www.6deg.ca. Thank you very much for joining me tonight and talking about consumer trends during COVID-19. If I had to sort of summarize my own views on this, I think that Derek mentioned some of them, and that was the idea of you got to invest. I think people that are just hunkering down are missing out on opportunity. People that were just hoping that it would go away and didn't think about that word that we heard a bunch about, the new normal, were wrong, and so therefore you had to invest. Pivot. It's the old adage of no, you don't want to just keep hitting your head against the wall, because if you keep doing that, you're going to break your head eventually. But the idea about trying to figure out with persistence what the right strategy is and pivoting, I think is the right strategy. And then, as Adriana has talked about, online. Clearly, online is something that has grown, and it's grown like crazy in the last couple of months. And we all knew it was going to grow, but we've had this crucible in the last couple of months of showing how big and how important it can be. Safety, and clearly public health safety, but Adriana also talked about physical and financial, and I think that's key. And I guess the other one that I would add that I'm not sure you mentioned, but I think that quality, that value has become even more important. And maybe that's your Adrian's discovery comment. But I think that value and quality become far more important today. People are a lot less willing to buy stuff that they don't really need, and they're only buying the meat, the clothes, the car that is really critically important for them, because we're all a little bit nervous, and we want to spend our money on only the important things, and the rest of the money we want to keep around for a rainy day. And so maybe that's my financial safety issue. Anyway, thank you both very much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it. And again, the website, if you're interested in following them, and Adrian says that they're going to put a couple of case studies up, is the number 6deg.ca. Thank you both, Derek and Adriana, for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Pleasure.